What we're trying to do is bring everybody up to speed on about 2 years worth of work. Our committee is pretty broad. I'll introduce Paula Allen, and Paula, if you just raise your hand. Paula Allen is the chair of our committee. Rob Butoric is on our committee. Rob, would you just raise your hand? And this is also for you to identify some people in the room that if you want to talk to after, I'm going to go ahead and volunteer their time to talk with you. James Dames, our facilities director, is on this committee. James. I did not see her this morning. Betsy, are you in here? I haven't seen her yet this morning. Betsy Rumor is also on our committee. She got away from every responsibility, but I sunk my teeth into her with this one. And she could not run from it. Betsy is on our committee. Jeff Holmes, one of our elders, is on our committee. He could not be here today. Janie Mather is on our committee. And Marlon in the back got added as like a late night addition to our committee because his expertise has been so valuable. And so what we're trying to do here is catch you up on 2 years worth of work. And what we're trying to do here is make sure that as we move forward together. What you are seeing here is our best and earnest proposals, our best and earnest interpretation of feedback that we received from you. And Janie will cover more of that, but hear this. It matters that we walk forward together, not that this committee moves forward alone. Second, this committee has weighed 3 things in mind this whole time, and I hope I'm not stepping on your toes here. 1, you. Pastors talk. That's all we ever do. Yeah. No. Come back, Janie. Yeah. I'm almost done. Yeah. Pastors talk. We've weighed you in mind at every single step. We've prayed and we've sought the Lord at every single step, and we've always held in mind that this place is where most of us, if not all of us in this room, have had an encounter with the Lord. And because of that, there are certain aspects of this place that are cherished for us. We've talked about that. We've prayed about that. We've thought about that. And our goal isn't to undo any of that. It's to magnify the ability for those kind of encounters for generation and generation to come. And so would you welcome up Janie Mather as she comes and brings the rest of this to us.
It's been a bit since we've talked about this, hasn't it? Yes. And the reason for that is exciting. But I do want to tell you that as I was leaving the house today, the person with whom I live said to me, Janie, you know, the time that your committee has meeting is the time that 2 human beings could have been born and an elephant. And I thought about that. And that is true. Unfortunately, that is true. However, when you think about 2 human beings, think right now of the youngest person you know and the oldest person you know. And these are people who are in your caring circle. And these are people whom you love. So 2 years seems like a long time that this has been evolving and developing. But the 2 people that you and I are thinking of were worth waiting for. And so if we believe what it says in 2 Peter, that 1,000 years is like yesterday, and yesterday is like 1,000 years. 2 years is now time to open up a package for you of a proposal, not a final decision, but a proposal that started in its root with a very, very generous gift from a congregant. And everybody in this room, trying to have everybody at the table now, knowing a little bit of background, I think is a kindness. If it's a repeat for you, I apologize and I ask you to just take in that gorgeous cross behind me. But a little bit of catch-up will bring us all to the same place before we unwrap the package. So a couple years ago, a very generous donation came across the desk here. And the person wanted to honor the memory of some loved ones. And in conversations at that time with Pastor Betsy Roomer and Pastor Kevin Gorley, the initial idea was to build something, maybe a wing, maybe another building. But as that conversation began to massage and fit in to what we already have here, and to think about ideas that are maybe enhancements, maybe needs, but also ideas that would impact everybody who walks through these doors. The idea of enhancing worship was an idea that was very affectionate with all parties involved. Now, I realize, as a lover of words, that I am going to speak a couple words that have different meanings and different root systems to different people. And I think I just spoke one: worship. Worship is an action. Worship is a thought. Some of us associate our worship here with that stained glass window. Some of us worship deeply on a run in North Park. Some of us need to be touching our Bible when we worship. We need to sing when we worship. It is personal. But we're all sitting here in this gorgeous sanctuary, and it is also corporate. So again, as we wrap our arms around the idea of a sanctuary enhancement committee, I think I just spoke another word that has different meanings for people. And that's the word enhancement. Enhancement to improve the quality of, or to upgrade, refresh, involves aesthetics, which now we're going to be talking about beauty. And beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Things can be a mess, and your life is beautiful. My dinner can look like a mess to me, and the beauty is in the people that are around that table. I've said that my whole life. So these words are also coming with a heft to them before we've even opened things up. So they are special, individual, carefully used, and you are the ones that are going to unwrap and put more meaning to them, because when you ask questions or when you send an email to the sec@memorialparkchurch.org, or just send them to Chris, you are going to impose and place your print on what you feel would remove barriers for your worship experience. But the beauty is that I'm going to give you a little bit of a prompt sheet, in that for the last couple years, when this idea was introduced and an all-church email went out saying, hey, tell us your ideas. What would enhance the worship experience for you, not wanting to change the culture of Memorial Park Church, but wanting to refresh? What barriers stop or stun you in your worship? You, my church family, provided an unraveling of all kinds of improvements, all kinds of concerns. And I love the fact, and we love the fact, and we prayed over the fact during our committee meetings that so many of these concerns were for other parishioners. It gives me pause, even now. And so as we take a look at some of the comments, you might be an individual who is thinking, wait a minute, I never got that email. Wait a minute, I haven't heard anything. And what does SEC stand for again? It's possible that you were away. It's possible that you were ill. It's possible that you were in another place. It's possible we don't read all of our email. It's possible that you were really, and I was dealing with other more prioritized items at that time. But you're here. And it's just proposals of our best work, but there is time now, today, in the cafe area after this meeting, in the second town hall, in the third town hall in January, and 24/7, thinking about it, asking yourself, what did I see today? What am I concerned about? And how can I be a part of this project? So, moving on to ideas from you, we're going to start with the first slide, Marlon, if you can. This is the beginning that really I am showing you what you said. Maybe not you, but congregants, fellow believers, friends, family. This is what you said that would help you in your worship experience to remove barriers for online worshipers and all the services across the spectrum. This is my favorite quotation out of the scores and scores of things. And this was from a person that said many, many other suggestions. Because the interesting thing is that all of the suggestions really ended up being in three main categories. First one was lighting. Second one was AV and sound. I know these aren't sexy, but this is what you said. Lighting, audio, visual, acoustics. And the third one was design and aesthetics. And that's another big term that means different things to different people. Just remember, this person told the committee, you can't please everybody. Don't forget we're Presbyterians. So with that in mind, under the design and aesthetics, we chose three comments that captured some of the ideas of what is on your mind. Transept areas are dated and the accordion doors are unsightly. Downsize the choir pews and move them to one side to fill in the dead corner on the left side of the chancel. This will free up space on the right for handicap accessibility and for storage. There is a lack of uniformity in the kinds and shades of woodwork used throughout the sanctuary. When other folks came in, professionals, and they took a look at the sanctuary, within 10 minutes they said, do you know that there are 9 different shades of wood in the sanctuary? No, I did not know that. I didn't know that. Some of the suggestions that are not part of the sanctuary experience were important things to people, but they're not in the scope of the project. So when you're thinking about emailing, when you're thinking about responding, we want everything still that's in your mind, because there might be a place in the other work of the church that your need and your observation is something that we can fold into another project. Maybe it doesn't deal with the sanctuary, but if it's important to you, please respond. Okay, so the next item was audiovisual improvements. Television screens, projectors, and monitors need upgrading to achieve a high standard of performance. We got a lot of feedback from people online that couldn't hear, or the screens went out, or the sound was fading. It was fine in here, but the balance between online and here in this space was not optimal. Comprehensive assessment of audio and visual systems is needed. I don't need to read to you, but this was a very frequent comment. We have been attending Memorial Park online mainly because the sound level is high enough to be uncomfortable and painful. Uncomfortable and painful. That's a barrier. That's a barrier. Okay, many of you mentioned this string that I'm looking at right now. What's with the string, SCC? Can't we lower mics from the ceiling? Another suggestion, we can't do this, but again, it matters because it came from somebody's heart. I sit in the back and I can't see. Can we rake the floor like the Benetton? No. And come closer. There are simple solutions that have no time, talent, treasure, just maybe a little practicality. Find a friend, sit up front. Another, I think this person was being funny, but said, hey, how about buying Chris a suit? That person was being funny, but we'd have to have another fund for that. We love people. We love people the way we are. Oh, and here's another one. I was in the prayer room, this person said, and when that toilet flushes on that hall, it's loud. And I don't want to hear that when I'm in the prayer room. Okay, now that's a true statement, but that's not the sanctuary. That's not part of this project, but that is something, again, that came up in an email. All right. So there are a lot of comments, and the architects and lighting and AV folks took it to their offices, took it to their teams, took it to their minds, and reported back to us. And so what we're showing you today is our very, very, very best work to date. I want to say again, it's a proposal. It's not a final decision. But as we move into December and the town hall then, and as we move into January and the town hall then, our goal is to narrow so that we can make a final decision that benefits all of us and brings us to a more enhanced worship, to remove the barriers, and for all of these systems to be equally balanced, no matter where we're worshiping, online or in here. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at the first rendering. I'm going to talk a little bit as you're looking at these pictures, just because it's the first time you've seen them, and I've seen them several times. This is a rendering that has a couple components in it that were very, very important. They were important because they came from you as suggestions, and I want to mention them, but your eyes are seeing different things. You may be looking at the light fixtures. You may be looking at the ceiling right now. You may be looking at the carpeting. We've talked to some people that have seen these in session, and they think they see themselves in these renderings. That cannot be true, but you might see somebody in the front. I think it does look like Chris, his stance. Again, these are generated. We are not ADA accessible. And many comments came from people with mobility issues. And others came from people who have no mobility issues, but work with teams of people and in ministries that do. People that have canes, people that have wheelchairs, and it is extremely difficult to get someone up here who has mobility issues. Folks in the choir who are moving in a very tight place. Think of a flight where you're going to your seat by the window. It's awkward. And it's not easy to get there. And think about someone who's a performer or a soloist who is handicapped. So there are a lot of concerns with the ADA ramps. It is to make the chancel by having AD ramps and by moving the choir loft a little bit to the side and having the space more flexible definitely opens up this whole area. How about another slide, Marlon? Here's a closer look at the chancel area. Now, in this rendition, we see the whole stained glass window. Have you ever seen the bottom of the stained glass window? It's there. It's there. Come on up and see it. But this rendition shows the whole stained glass window. The choir is portable. It's in individual chairs that can change with the ensemble, change with the programming. The piano is there. We do not have any conversations about music. We have not had any conversations about music or the transept or the organ without Miss Gail Henry being a part of it. She's adjunct, just as Marlon is adjunct. You might notice that the lighting fixtures are bigger. They are called Manning fixtures, and their illumination is much stronger and wider in its circle. There also is an added element of cove lighting that also lights up and lights down so that the walkways on the side are not in the shadows and not in darkness. The pews, this was a big surprise to us. First of all, the deacons have been working on what to do with the cushions, how to make the pews more comfortable. You, I'm sure, have noticed that the cushions are very stained. They're very old. And there have been a lot of people looking into the cushions, but we just haven't made a decision about that yet. Here's a surprise. It is cheaper to replace the pews than to refurbish them. I couldn't believe it, but it's true. And what's funny is that just in the past couple days, a couple people have said to me, Janie, if you get rid of those pews, I really want one. And I didn't know why, and the conversation didn't go farther than that, but a proposal is to replace the pews and have cushions in the back and also on the seats. The organ is not part of the sanctuary project, but the organ sits on the chancel. Its console is huge. It's over 30 years old, so we're in the ballpark of really looking at it to see how much life does Gail think is in the organ. How much more can we get out of it before we're going to need to think about moving to a more modern or a more usable product for her and for the programming? So I mention it, again, it's not part of this project, but it's part of the chancel step. I don't know if you know this, but up on the chancel, when Chris is preaching, he often gets to this point, and then he turns. Do you notice that? He does not go out here and talk to Corky and Linda out here. And he does not, I'm saying this because we went to the Dave Matthews concert on Friday, and Dave was really reaching out to a lot of his fans and going everywhere. Chris can only go there and here, or anybody who's speaking, because the lighting and the sound parameters do not reach here. So this becomes space that can be utilized with advanced integrated sound and lighting and acoustics facility. The whole stage area can be repurposed and can become more usable for anybody who's up here. I'm trying to think of a couple other things. The transepts, we want to create more of a better angle line, sometimes the camera angle. The fact that this is right here, I can't see all of you over there because of that. And that's there because we need it to be there. With some of our equipment, it's in very good working conditions, and other equipment is so band-aided together that back there on the AV team, they're doing the best that they can. So the transept areas, we're going to remove the accordion doors and change the camera angles so that they are more easily seen. How about the back of the AV area? Have you noticed that it's almost on a platform without skirting, and there's a lot of things underneath there that are really needing to be hidden? So the proposal here is that there's going to be panels in the back, sort of booths, 2 booths that will be able to have camera angles, that will be able to have all of the video equipment. And that's a scene from the front looking at the back. And the 2 will be symmetrical, and they will have what they need for that production. Okay, I think we have one more slide. Do we? It's good to have time to let these settle in because, again, you're looking at them for the first time. All right. There is more to share with you, but for our first town hall meeting, the awkward part of this is in a regular town hall, there would be lots of time for back and forth questions and even conversation between the observers and the participants, not just speaker, listener, but really everybody would have a voice. And we're not able to do that completely today, but we certainly do have enough time for questions. And after this meeting is concluded, we are going to go to the cafe area where you can continue the conversation. And there is the website that at any time, that is going to go to all the 7 members of the Sanctuary Enhancement Committee, and then we will take it back to our committee meetings. We meet weekly. We have been meeting weekly, either in person or by Zoom. And so we talk frequently, and we enjoy not only the conversation between and among us, but we feel closer to the congregation and to the needs of the congregation as you continue to speak with us. And honestly, that can be individual. You can request a meeting with Rob to talk about those lights and to talk about lumens. And you can schedule a meeting with Jeff Holmes. He's going to say to you, I build bridges. But he is a part of this committee, and he knows a lot about deeper, more granular things dealing with the architecture. Marlon is open to conversation. if you have ideas for AV and video capability and accessibility. Gail is open for conversation. So within the next month, please be active in your thinking and in your praying and in your conversation so that everybody feels a part of the table as we move forward. Right now, it's wide open.
Hey, Jamie, I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Number one, while all this renovation is going on, where are we going to have our services then?
That's a good question. Do you want to take that, Chris?
Yeah. Hey, first, can we get an applause for Janie Mather real quick? It's not easy to be up here, but it helps that you're also good looking. That way there's a good reciprocity between the speaker and the congregation. To answer that question, yeah, we've thought about that. We actually thought about that about 2 years ago. You might remember we kind of embarked on a church-wide cleaning project. One of the main goals of that project was to clear out Westminster Hall and to make that usable for more than just the giving tree, but also for our services. And so our plan would be to temporarily relocate from in here to Westminster Hall for the duration of that project. This project right now is being estimated at 6 months. I wanted you to keep in mind Tom Hanks's Money Pit, where they told him 2 weeks throughout the whole movie. 6 months is nothing but a hard estimate. And it could be wrong like that. And so our goal would be to go down there, to worship down there, and we're committed to doing the same type of worship down there that's we do in here. There will be some differences. I don't have an organ in Westminster Hall, but we will have piano in Westminster Hall. We will have worship in there. So yes, that would be where we conduct worships. Mm-hmm. Worship services. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Are the renderings available to us to look at?
Yes, not online yet, but what we are doing is we have big high-res gloss pictures, big ones that we're going to be putting out on easels for you to take a closer look at. We didn't want to put them out online without any context behind them, because then it just seems like that's what we're doing rather than that's what we're proposing. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What about the number of pews and spacing between them? Is that something you're looking at changing?
Absolutely. So do you mind if I just keep answering?
No, go ahead.
This is
No.
great. She's already worked plenty today.
No, that's fine.
So the pews are tight. Mm-hmm. Probably too tight. Part of our discussion has been increasing the distance between the pews. Part of getting new pews is increasing that distance, adding a back sound booth. It's this delicate calculus between maximum occupancy and maximum comfort. Right? It's these weird calculations. There's comfort seating, which they say is 2 feet per person. And then there's non-comfort seating, which is 18 inches per person. Right? Think of it like Spirit Airlines versus first class. We don't want to quite be Spirit Airlines. We don't want to quite be first class. Right? They say, Jeff Holmes and I talked about this, at length. How many people do you think you can fit across a pew? 4? Absolutely. 6? Yeah. 10? 12? 14? I don't know about you, but I don't want to worship with somebody in my lap. So we've looked at that extensively. If we do spread it out, our occupancy goes down. Think of each row that might leave as 10 to 12 seats leaving, and our committee is trying to keep that in balance so that we maximize the number of worshipers, but also the comfort of our worshipers. Spirit Airlines versus first class is the best way to think about that, yeah.
I would just add that the handicap is accessible seating.
That's also true. We are looking to cut out some sections of pews, right, where this row right here might be shorter so that we can better accommodate people with wheelchairs and walkers into our pews without those things being cumbersome to either them or our other congregants, right? Giving a person with a wheelchair accessible seating matters to us. So that's also seating we could fill in with like temporary chairs if we don't need it. And so those will be more common throughout the sanctuary as well. Yeah.
It's hard to tell about color.
But was that a black and white sanctuary?
So what that is that is a white ceiling. Now that's two parts on the ceiling. What we're trying to achieve here, you heard Janie say in the acoustics of the room, we have this whole room acoustically tested. Just so you know, brick and wood, they create very hot surfaces. So volume comes in here and bounces around like crazy. That's sometimes why it feels so loud and resonant. And so in the back half of the sanctuary will be what we call acoustical paneling to help bring down the overall volume of echo in the room, which helps with that resonance while giving our sound team more control in the back to do what they're so great at. But we only actually want that in the back half of the room. And so then the front half became this issue of, well, what do we do with it? Part of the uplighting showed us that the state of this wood is 62 years old. Right? And so one of the best ways to freshen up that wood, that look, that aesthetic, was actually to paint it and to bring it in line with the acoustical paneling. So that's acoustical paneling in the back that will look a lot like this slatted wood, and then white paint on that, and then this color beam is what we're looking at. That's where we're looking to draw out the natural beauty of our sanctuary, right? We will put a new varnish on these beams, but that's the color. So it would be that white and this, and then all of the color would be brought into alignment with that. So rather than that comment about, you have this many grain of wood throughout the sanctuary, it would be brought in line. And the idea there is to create both contrast, beauty, and brightness. Lightness was one of the main goals and one of the main feedback points of the sanctuary. Make it bright in here. In all of my meetings, I often talk with people about, it kind of feels like a bar on a cloudy day in our sanctuary. And the only downside is we don't serve booze. But we wanted it to be bright. One feedback point that really resonated with us was, in order to read my Bible, I need a little flashlight. That should never be the case in a church. Amen? Yeah. That was a great question. We got time. I mean, listen, you guys, we got 20 minutes. If you want to ask.
Funding. When are we going to start a fundraiser?
Ooh, Jeff, Laszlo, you are hitting. Yeah. Actually, I'll tease this out. All right, I'll let everybody know here. So we are going to have to take on a capital campaign for this. Now, everybody immediately went, oh no. Here's the good news. We have some estimates of what it will cost. They're not good estimates, according to our experts on our committee. They're very broad, general estimates. What we're trying to do is get to a part of this process called construction documents so that we can take it out to contractors and get real estimates. What we know is this project's going to cost in the neighborhood of about $2 million. Here's the good news. We've already pre-raised more than $1 million towards this campaign. We are already more than halfway there. Yeah, amen. We have a capital campaign team going forward, bringing this out and this need and this necessity to us. Why? Because there should be no barrier to worship here at Memorial Park Church. And we wanted to know, if we start heading down this road, is the capital campaign going to completely I don't know what word I'm trying to, derail, there it is, derail this project? And we determined, we've got to figure this out ahead of time. And so moving forward, we know that it'll cost around $2 million. Here's my 2 cents. Whenever you do construction, no contractor ever looks at you and goes, I've got dramatic ways to make it cheaper. Right? Things seem to grow. Our hope and our prayer as a committee is to continue to keep that tight. We don't want to go around or exceed that. But what we're going to do here in January is begin to talk about the vision for this. Because here's the reality. This isn't a renovation project for us, even though it seems like one. This is a strategic maneuver to maximize our witness to this area and community, to give people a nudge back into church, to reach people online in a new and better way, and to maximize your ability to connect in the services. I've got a whole bunch that I want to go through. I want to talk about the current reality of the church. If you're looking to do homework, a great book to read ahead of time would be The Great De-Churching by Jim Davis. Fascinating stuff. Our deacons and our elders have already worked through a lot of his material. And we're going to do this throughout the month of January. We're going to get into February, and we are going to culminate a capital campaign in the month of February to move forward as a church, where we're asking all of us to go forward together. Now, you might be thinking, Chris, that seems like a long way away for where we're at. Yes, because we won't go there unless we're all on board. If all we get is hate mail, we might have misstepped. But what we want to do is move forward together. That's both in the belief behind this project and then the need to finance this project so that this project enables another chapter of ministry here at Memorial Park. That's a great question, Jeff.
Pertaining to that, I believe Jane said the organ is not included in that. Is that correct?
Okay, so yes, let me actually bring some clarity to that. I think what Janie was trying to say there, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that this organ is fantastic and we love it. It's 34 years old on a 30-year lifespan. Here's the good news. It works. Works beautifully. Like 2 months ago, Gail came up to me and went, I turned on the organ and it was humming in a weird way. And I said, okay, what does that mean? And she goes, it means I'm going to turn it off and turn it back on and hope, right? I think we had that conversation. And guess what? Hope was good. It worked. We had an organ. But part of this is making sure that we can prolong organ music here at Memorial Park for generations to come. We don't want this organ to go and then not be replaced. So our committee has taken it upon themselves to look into an organ upgrade and to look into building a new organ for Gail that has longer lifespan and more modern function. And what we mean by that is this. This organ doesn't integrate to any of our sound. If you've ever listened to our online services, our organ broadcast is not what Gail plays. I'm not trying to, belittle Gail's online broadcast here, but if you come listen to Gail in person, wow. Now, what we're doing is our best. These cabinets are all filled with speakers, and what we did is we threw microphones in there to capture that and then stream that. If we upgrade our organ, what we can do is integrate our organ directly into the soundboard, which will then allow it to broadcast more clearly and beautifully. And so not only will it benefit everybody in here by prolonging organ music at the church, but we'll be able to broadcast Gail's beautiful playing on our online services for those who worship at home or for those checking out our churches. And we think that's a pretty cool maneuver. Yeah. Oh, yes. I'm sorry, Kathy. I didn't see it.
Along with the sort of circular front of the altar area, will that increase or decrease the floor space there? Because as well as worship and church services, there are performances and things that happen. Will it make that better for room for instruments and different performance things?
Those are great questions. You guys are smart people. You know that? Okay, so in order to get ramps, certain things had to go. Now, ramps were important to us, right? You might have noticed in those pictures. We can go back to that close-up of the chancel, Marlon. That would be great. Those ramps go from this side and this side all the way around in the back, and that does take away the choir loft. But what we did as a committee is we looked into the overall square footage of this space. We defined it as both usable and unusable square footage. Like Janie was saying, this area is tough to use, right? Number one, this is a temporary measure because our amp rack went down. But it's also hard to mic up here. It's hard to broadcast right here. And so what we did is, in order to maximize our square footage, we went with this wedged approach. And that square footage is roughly the same as the current usable square footage up here now. So yes, we should be able to do all of what we do. That piano is actually this piano. That organ is actually the dimensions of this organ on there. And that's to show you a little bit of the scope of that chancel up there. And then that's a couple rows of chairs over here as well. So we should be able to accommodate what we are used to on that chancel as well as this chancel.
I would just add that this chancel area, or the area where we're working here, this would be farther out. So the closeness, the nearness, the eye contact between a speaker, a soloist, a performer is going to be closer, more intimate. The communication is going to be tighter, and that is a really, really good thing. Even though the steps are purposeful for one idea, as far as getting closer, where Chris is standing right here, has a personal touch.
Let's see if I can emulate the pose exactly, right? Actually, I think it's the other way. Flip it. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
So this is actually where
Yeah.
not Chris is standing
Yeah.
in that picture. And I'll just be honest, right? When I'm back there where Janie is, John, I'm going to call you out because I know you're sitting back there. But when you're standing back where Janie is with the light on you, you cannot see and connect. I mean, right here, I can see Carol Annawalt on that back wall. As you go further back there, it's very difficult to connect. And worship and preaching is all about connecting as an entire congregation. So that was a priority. And so part of that, how we're getting more space, is by bringing that space out to here. And so if you notice how much square footage that opens up then behind, that's how we got there. I saw Wayne had a hand a second ago though. Sorry, Wayne.
Yeah, I noticed there's some inconsistency between the views.
Mm-hmm.
On this view here, you have a knee wall to the right and left.
Mm-hmm.
Stick out between the second and third
Mm-hmm.
arch. That's going to cut off a third of the side view.
Yes, it is.
It's not shown in the other views.
Mhm. So what we did is we actually just had a meeting with all of our trades on Thursday, and we went through these renderings, their drawings, and their schematics, and we started talking about what was unacceptable. What Wayne is saying right now, and this is tough, if you go to that transept view, that's from the transept looking toward the chancel, Marlon. The way this is depicted, there's that sloped wall, not that one. Kind of from the very back of that room looking forward. Yes. If you notice, there's what he's saying is this knee wall. It's this sloped wall, and it would go down to here. We said that's unacceptable. We do not want these people to have a compromised view if our goal is to move forward. And so that was we talked with all of the trades involved, and we were able to mitigate that wall to a large degree. Those are things that we're trying to catch as a committee. Those were great feedback points. We got that in our elder board meeting as well as we presented it to them. And I appreciate that because yes, these drawings, they haven't updated past that. And so they are working through that. I'll just point out that Rob Butorek, Jeff Holmes, those guys catch a lot of things. They can't catch everything, but they catch a lot of things. And that was something that Jeff and Rob both went, no, in our meeting. And then those trades then immediately took off and fixed it for us. So that's a great observation. Yeah.
Considering the plan to replace pews and new cushioning, is there a coordination with the carpeting that's here now, or what were the thoughts about that?
Yeah, if you go back to the overall long picture, Marlon, actually what we're looking to do is to replace all of this carpet with two different types of carpet. A slightly darker carpet for under the pews themselves, because that will, the largest area of spills in this room happen in these rows. I should not stand in front of that. Happen in these rows, and often James and his team are great, but if a coffee gets spilled in a way that they can't easily see, sometimes it takes a little while for them to notice, right? We don't always claim ownership over our spills. And so we went with a darker color here that will absorb spills better. And over in the front is a very similar pattern in the carpet as well. But yes, the carpet, the pews, the cushions were all thought about to be tied in together, and the carpet will be replaced as well. Yeah, that's a great question. I'll go here. And so 1, 2, 3. Thelma.
When the choir's in that picture, I'm not sure, are they going to be acoustically able to be project their sound? And did it look like they were over here sideways?
Yeah, so we'll be able to do that. They're just showing in that picture how it is that they could be. They're trying to show the depth and expanse of that chancel space. We can put them any way we want them. They'll be able to be mic'd. They'll be able to be broadcast. They'll be able to project forward. They could all be right in front. They could all be tucked back there. Instead, right now, we can only really ever put the choir here or bring a couple of soloists up front. This will allow us more control over where the choir is, and will always ensure that the choir is both able to be heard and able to be picked up on all our microphone stuff. Yeah. And so then we were jumping back over to here.
Is the HVAC system part of your scope?
Ooh. That's, somebody's thinking over here. The HVAC system is not part of our scope, and here's why. We as a church have about $1.5 million in looming HVAC work. Now, we would happily attach that onto our scope, but right now what we're doing is we've been tackling the HVAC units as they either go down or we need to. James already fixed and maintained 4 this fiscal year, I think to the tune of $40,000. James is now saying, don't tell me this, James. Now, that is one of our stretch goals as a committee, is to be able to, if the capital campaign goes swimmingly well, there are a few things that we want. I shouldn't talk too much about the campaign. Let me first prioritize this. I mentioned the campaign. No matter what we bring in for that campaign, 10% of that will be going off to global or local missions. We will absolutely tithe on the money that comes in here because that's a practice of who we are. Number 2, one of our stretch goals is a larger budget for the HVAC work so we can do more than just maintain. So maybe we can improve. The 3rd stretch goal is the Wild West that is our parking lot. But those are stretches, right? And we want to be responsible with our finances and what we promise. Our goal first, our scope first is the sanctuary. That's a great question. We were over here. Yeah.
What is the reason or thinking behind going with pews again versus individual seats, which give a lot more versatility? And is it seating capacity because they might not seat as many, or is it cost, or what would be the reason for fixed seating?
You guys, I so appreciate this. So we waited. To keep our current pews was $180,000. To go to new pews, we don't have the exact cost, but we know it won't be $180,000. To go to chairs was $24,000. And that's dramatic. But we as a committee, when we weighed in all of this, the very first thing we considered was, what would this room look like with chairs rather than pews? Is it who we are? Is it our culture? How would this room look with chairs going all the way back? It would be cheaper. To a degree, it would allow us a lot more design, but we felt it was a misrepresentation of who we are. Now, as a committee, we could be wrong on that, but our committee, as we prayed and we sought that, we wondered, and we wondered dramatically. We thought this room would look odd with that many rows of chairs going all the way back, and we felt like the pews did a really good job of capturing our culture as a church. If you disagree, send an email. But our feeling as a committee was that there's probably a 70-30, maybe even 80-20 split on that. And that we felt that it better encapsulated the culture, the theme, the ambiance, and the aesthetic of this room to have pews. That's how we arrived there, yeah. This wood here? Yes. And that's not because we don't like the wood. In fact, as a committee, we did endeavor to do it. When we got the product demonstration and they lit the ceilings, that wood is not in the best shape. And in order to preserve the beauty of the room, think of it like a renovation project in the regard to if you were to upgrade your kitchen and you were to ignore the appliances but do the cabinets, suddenly the appliances look dated. If you were to upgrade all of the appliances, but none of the cabinets or the countertops, it has that similar effect. Anything that we touch, if we don't touch something else, it will make it look jarring in the room. And so what we're trying to do is create balance over the whole sanctuary. The other issue is it does then again invite another level or color of wood into the room, which really hinders kind of creating that overall contrast in design. As the architects worked through that was both their recommendation, and then as we as a committee saw it lit the way that it was, we really felt there was a need for it too.
What
that paint have some type of acoustical property and how bad the acoustics of the wood?
It's just paint. But what they told us is these front panels, they don't do a ton acoustically to the room. The way sound moves, the primary places to acoustically treat are the back and the upper parts of this room. And they actually, when we said, well, why don't we just acoustically panel the whole ceiling as an option? They said, oh, please don't. That's far more expensive and you're going to get so many diminishing returns doing this front half. We would say just match the look of the acoustical panels one to the other and that will be good. Yeah.
Is the problem that we have with the steeple included in any of the?
That's a great question. So we are still on a hold with the steeple, and here's why. It's like $6,000 to get a crane out. And when we looked at the steeple project, without taking it fully down, we have no idea whether it's going back up. That steeple has an issue, and you can hear it every now and then when there's a little bit of wind. The structural engineers told us it is not at immediate risk for falling. So unless that accelerates, we're going to deal with it as much as we can in our services. During this project, there will be that kind of equipment out here, and we can add it onto the cost and the work and ostensibly save ourselves quite a bit of money doing it that way. And so when they get here, one of our construction additions is to take down the steeple and have a structural engineer look at it, and then we'll know more then. Yeah.
Yeah, my understanding was that it's more of a problem for AV than it really is safety-wise.
Yeah, the safety issue is minimal, right? If that steeple can go up easily again, we'll put it right back up. If it can't, then there could be a reality without a steeple here, yeah.
And the accordion separations that are going.
These things right here?
Replaced by something else?
No, actually, those will stay. Right now, we're proposing that they get reclothed in the front. The cloth is a little hard on some areas, but those will stay right there. They'll live there. That way we can close off and open those rooms at our goal. It's these accordions that we're talking about right here. This wood storage area, those will be replaced by actual storage areas that are brought into design with the rest of the room as well. Yeah.
Question, Jenny, what is your proposal, a little bit of specifics regarding the stained glass windows?
Okay, so what you see there are just placeholder images. Those stained glass are exactly what you got. They will not leave. In fact, we will do anything and everything to magnify them with lighting.
I love that history with Helga and everything else.
Absolutely. Yeah, they just didn't have this in their architectural rendering, so those are just placeholders. Yeah, great question.
I should have said that, Dave, that the stained glass window is as it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going anywhere. I could have said that at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Can you just describe the ramp? Because it's hard to see in the picture. Where does it go?
Yeah, the ramp starts, and Rob, you can help me here. The ramp will start, if you all can see me, on each side it's mirrored, but the ramp will start about right here. James says a step back.
Behind that beam.
The ramp will start about right here behind this beam, and it will wrap up and around the whole chancel, coming to an exit point near the back out here, because ramps require a certain amount of feet, and I don't want to get too much into that, but there'll be landings back there. That way it's not also a sheer drop as well, but there's limitations to ramping and rules for it. So you have to have a certain amount of runway. So it'll start there, wrap all the way back up and around, and exit right here in the center of the chancel. Does that help? I can walk you through a little more detailed later if you still need a better visual. Well, actually, hey, here's the deal. It's 11. I love y'all. I also love the people coming to worship. And we want to worship today as well. So here's the committee. If you are a member of this committee, would you just stand real quick? Janie is also here. I'm here. Listen, actually, as a committee, you have no idea how much that means. This is a tough committee. We think of all of you all the time, and we love you. We love you. We love you. And so here's my commitment. These guys, I took their whole Sunday. They're going to be in the cafe. I'll be in the cafe for a brief minute, and then I got to lead a worship service as well. But if you have other questions or comments, find one of these people. They can help you with anything or everything. The did you think ofs? What about this? What's the plan for? They can help. Now, they may not have a perfect answer for you, but they may say, let me write that down, or would you send that to me and we'll get back. The best way to contact all of us at once with your thoughts, would you go ahead and put that back up, Marlon? SEC@memorialparkchurch.org. You will hit all of us with that one email address. We can read and do anything. Part of this meeting was to present and to listen. Next meeting is us continuing this dialogue, all right? Hey, can I just do a quick prayer? Actually, Janie, would you lead us in a quick prayer?
Yours. You are the potter and we are the clay. So we give it all to you, the good ideas, the not so good ideas. And Lord, in your mercy and in your loving heart, would you please help us to hold fast to the ideas that glorify your name, because that is our purpose in everything that we do. Thank you, Lord, for the privilege of coming today and worshiping with you, to you, and for you. In Jesus' precious name I pray. Amen.